My background is diplomacy, multilateral diplomacy. I'm from Hungary. I served in multilateral places, responsible for global regulation. I was running an organization for 8 years in charge of nuclear disarmament and the prevention of the misuse of nuclear technology. So this is the area I'm coming from. This notion of are we fighting the wrong or the previous war of mind and thinking and creativity led me to have a list of questions and dilemmas of my own. And the very first point is about real-world applications. So are we in a, there is an expression, blue sky research, which is extremely important, basic research. But it's not applied to a particular context compared to real-world applications. So I would like to emphasize now and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, all the time, this context that whatever we are exploring, we will have to apply to the real world. From that point of view, we are not interested just in what the experts and the scientific community can supply as a body of knowledge. But we have to see, and these are the questions, how we apply what we explore to what we face. To what we face is, which is the world we are facing, or which are the words, because I will be speaking about the words we are facing. And all that has a purpose, and the purpose is mitigation and optimization. And I will try to make the point that it's more relevant than ever. So for the real-world applications, compared to blue sky research, the words and visualization of those words might be a starting point, a precursor, and to see how they might look like. And for me, for the purpose of this exercise, with a lot of simplifications, there are two words I would like to put in front of you. And the corner cutting means that I am inventing names for them. Sorry for that. There is a royalty to pay if you would like to later refer to any of them. So real world one, faith depression. Compared to economic depression of the 1930s, faith depression. And this is not really a new word. This is a fast backwarding, okay? So we are looking upon a word which could be reminiscent of the 1930s as one reference point, or the turn of the century, the 1900s, okay? 19th century, 20th century turn. And what we are looking upon is a cluster of mutually reinforcing bubbles. And those bubbles are there, the banking, currency defaults and employment. And further bubbles bursting as a result of this chain reaction. And reaching a level which I call frustration and fear and anger bubble. And this is already an area where we are moving to something which is the more emotional level, okay? And once that super bubble bursts, as it happened in the 1930s and probably as it happened in the 1900s, it is unleashing a phase depression, which is deeper and more severe and more far-reaching than an economic depression. This is the untold story of the 1930s and the 1900s. And this is having serious implications for the world I'm coming from, for the security world. How the technologies, which in principle to support humanity in its quest for perfection, are turned in the wrong direction and used in the wrong way, be it chemicals, biological, and nuclear or other technologies. So this is the practitioners. Real World 2. Again, this is my own creation, sorry for that. When a Hungarian is playing with English words, this is what's coming to life. Mindustrial Revolution, okay? Combination of industrial and mind, and the simplification is mind practically retaining all those advances which even with the short note are mentioned here, and reaching a critical mass. And this critical mass is more than the sum of the parts of this change. And this is not just a new word, it's a new age. Okay, it's so new that it's representing a new age. And this is something different in my mind from what was described as singularity. Singularity described originally by von Neumann and later referred to by Kurzweil. So this is still preceding this Mindustrial Revolution. So the interesting question is, we are in a world we know, and we are probably stuck with our concept and with our thought processes in the world we know. At the same time, there are new words out there. And these new words might be, yes, it might be a question of their coexistence. It's not one of them will be there. It will be a fading in and fading out type of process. And the complexity is that these two new words, which are with a lot of simplifications, are not necessarily alternatives. They are coming together, and as a result of coming together, these two new words might be synergistic and not necessarily in a positive way. They might be strengthening all the challenges both of them are facing, and they might be weakening the opportunity pool they are representing. So what you see on the left-hand side of this matrix is, and that's my act of provocation, in the course of the next couple of days, we have to see probably all the time in the back of our mind what are the new characteristics of the mind and the thinking and the creativity, what I call the thought process, under those scenarios. Could it be that those two new words are eclipsing the world we know pretty soon, or as we speak? And then we have to see what is the impact of them. So once we define the characteristics, and I will raise a couple of questions and dilemmas in terms of the characteristics, there is an impact issue, how they are impacting the thought processes, and how this impact would require a mitigation and optimization strategy, which is new because for generations we haven't had that. We just don't know those type of things because they happened 3 generations ago in the 1930s, or around 6 generations ago at the turn of the century. And there is a certain sequencing where we visualize the new environment and the new scenarios. We operationalize the thought processes, both at the individual and collective level. This is for someone who is coming from a different world is fascinating. This interaction between the individual thought processes and how they come together at the collective level. And again, the top of this pyramid is mitigation. So this is not a blue sky research anymore. There is an emergency, and you saw some of the last slides by Gary. These are not Q&A. I don't have the answers, so it's for questions and dilemmas. So, first of all, since individuals are potentially faced with existential threats, do raw emotions, among them frustration, fear, and anger, predominantly underlie their thought processes? Predominantly. Raw emotions predominantly underlie as a consequence of how the brain operates. And I'm not an expert on that, but there are experts in this room. Next question and dilemma. How the predominance of the emotional mindset would influence the rational thought processes of individuals. Is it a zero-sum game with a squeezing out effect? Or the rational part of the thought processes will remain unaffected, notwithstanding the intensity of those emotions? So you have the emotional and the rational part. So the zero-sum game, would it squeeze it out? Or how this interaction will work? Would these raw emotions remain isolated at the individual level for each and every person, or would they accumulate at the collective level, adding up to hundreds of millions of people driven by that? And again, go back to the 1930s and try to refer to what I'm trying to raise here, to those type of conditions, tens and hundreds of millions taken over by raw emotion. Is the accumulated entirety of raw emotions at the collective level represent more than the mere sum of its constituent part? Or once it's coming together, it's even more than the sum of the constituent part. A new quality of raw emotions at the collective level. It can be national level, it can be wider. Would these collective frustration, fear, and anger type of emotions reside merely at the unconscious level? Or, even if they reside initially at the collective unconscious level, would they sequentially produce thought leaders? I call them thought leaders, that would act them out for the collective, and transplant and embed and burn them in the collective conscious. And again, go back in history, but you don't have to go back too much in history, because there are certain elements about thought leaders. And the reason I'm putting leaders in quotation mark is because of the baggage many might have carried. Emotional intelligence versus general intelligence, hotly contested issue, especially for an outsider. So I try to stay out of it. But if we assume that EQ, emotional intelligence, defines more the outcome than any other factor, how will a major emotional intelligence dysfunctionality impact both at the individual and collective level the performance of societies? Okay, so we are speaking about an EQ dysfunctionality. What is the empirical evidence for societal impact when emotion-defined thought processes and means massively invade both individual and collective spheres, as well as the conscious and unconscious level? Social sciences were left behind. This is something not a revelation by natural sciences. And what we need in the period ahead of us against this emerging world is new ideas. We need newly born creativity for mitigating and optimizing the challenge evoked by Gary in his presentation. At the same time, societies are opting for more collectivism as a reaction to what is emerging. And it is happening at the expense of individuality and innovation. Societies and parts of the societies are retreating to well-tested and conservative values of religion and belief and norms and means. So would such discrepancy, on one hand, a challenge is out there, at the same time a retreat to the well-tested, leave a vacuum for extreme ideological experimentation, which happened historically. And it happened again in those two periods I mentioned. And this is the very last bullet point, is where is the exit, okay? You can treat it as a question where if you do not have any answers to any of those questions earlier, you should practically look for the exit sign, because it might be a very complex word with the phase depression. But is there any mitigation strategy which historically worked? Or again, this deficit of the social sciences are reminding us that the elites and the societies were experimenting with extreme ideologies in situations like that, historically, or both options, descending into major upheavals, uprising and revolution and civil war and war, or a combination of all of that as an exit strategy. What is the transmission and acquisition pattern of them when the communication is as total, as ubiquitous as we know in this new age? One example is where things might go in the wrong direction is there was this Microsoft Play, a platform Microsoft created. It had to be switched offline because it was picking up neo-Nazi and hate speech themes as a result of hundreds of thousands of tweets being sent. How to prevent societies torn apart? So as I mentioned, there is a retreat of the part of the society to traditional values and norms. At the same time, rightly so, another part of the society is galloping forward to the uncharted territory of the Mindustrial Revolution. Would this new revolution create enough new workplaces to compensate for the ones which, as a result of the increased productivity, eliminating? Eventually, what we are speaking about, an elimination by robots and artificial intelligence, gradual one, but definite one, of the need for human power. And we are speaking about human power in the physical sense, but we are speaking of human power in the intellectual sense. Okay, and this is a new phenomenon. And would it eventually lead to something where there is a tension between what I call economically active and economically inactive? But what is even more, a creator class which is intellectually creating things, and an idle class whose services are not needed, whose intellectual contribution the society doesn't need anymore because of the enhancement general artificial intelligence and intelligence can produce. Who will be the beneficiaries and the losers from this, if we go in this direction? Their proportions. Will be there a middle class? Is it a middle class shrinking, disappearing? Is it something strong enough, as it has been historically, to keep things on the right track for the society, to have the stability of the society? Supply and demand questions. So if there is a creator class which is shrinking, would they create enough supply for the goods created, goods and services created? And would again, a declining purchasing power of those who are inactive and idle, what is the tendency with the supply and demand balance going in the wrong direction? There is a new interest in unconditional basic income, guaranteed income to citizens. Is it a forerunner where the industrialist elite is trying to resolve this demand and supply problem, where they are providing a steady income to people? So the promises of this industrial revolution can be only realized if we have the right clarity about the industrial world as scenario 2, in combination with scenario 1, the phase of depression, the negative synergy they might go through, eclipsing the world as we know right now. And we have a time frame for that because what I would like to recall, earlier I mentioned the singularity moment. Many of the experts differ in putting the timeline for the singularity. So it's singularity is when the artificial intelligence will enhance the human intelligence. And there are already some stepping stones. But some are putting in 2030, some are putting at the end of the century. But they all agree that that moment is out there and not too far away. So we better make sure that we manage those two new worlds. And mind and thinking and creativity is all the time put in the right context which, again, from a security practitioner is a context which is a disturbing context. Thank you.